So, throughout the 10 years or so of Julie's ministry here with us, there are a few things about her that have changed. Early on in her time with us, it used to be fun to come into the office because we never knew exactly what she was going to look like. It seemed like almost weekly she changed the style and color of her hair. The new ways people have for communicating with one another, that change fits Julie perfectly because you may know she does like to communicate. She does like to talk. And so now she can Facebook post, message, text, and tweet, all the while holding up her end of a conversation with the person who's in the room with her. That has a change that she has definitely embraced. But of course, the most significant change in Julie's life over the last 10 years was when she became the mother of Emmett, that she is a single working mom by choice. But there are a few things about Julie that have not changed in these past 10 years or so. She remains directionally challenged. She often has no idea where she's going, so that it's a really good thing that there are GPS systems and Google Maps, or who knows how many thousands of miles she would have taken the church van with youth in them in the wrong direction. And this may be a little known fact about Julie, but she actually doesn't know how to type correctly. She doesn't use all of her fingers, just these two. So when she's doing all of that on keyboards, she's just doing it with these two fingers, and boy, do they move fast. And of course, another constant in Julie's life is her utter devotion to candy. That has never wavered. But maybe on a more serious note, although what could be more serious than a love of candy, there are some convictions, some firmly held beliefs that Julie has, and they have remained constant. They are deeply heartfelt beliefs that she has held, and they are part of the firm foundation, the firm ground on which she stands. Certainly over the past 10 years, how she articulates that faith, those convictions, how she gives them expression in words and deeds, that's changed and been transformed by her own life experiences and by world events. And yet there are these very strong held beliefs that no matter what happens in our world, what happens in her life, they remain her strong foundational faith on which she stands. And one of those, or the primary, the central, and the core, has to do with her understanding of God. When Julie wrote her ordination paper, that's a paper that you write as you're going through the process of becoming a minister. She wrote these words about God. The theologian Gordon Kaufman has described God as ultimate mystery, a being so vast and so wonderful that the best we can do as people is acknowledge that mystery and acknowledge that all of our language will never be enough to capture the wonder of God. For me, Julie continued, God is more infinite, more vast, and more powerful than my mind can completely comprehend, and more incredible than I could capture in words. So it's sort of interesting, isn't it, that one of Julie's foundational convictions, one of her most firm beliefs, has to do with the mystery of God and not actually being able to fully comprehend who God is. That sounds a little bit more like shifting sand or mushy mud rather than a firm, solid conviction. But Julie goes on to say, it is human nature to want to fully understand things. It is tempting to try to force God to fit in size and shape and the mold of human understanding, rather than letting God's nature overflow our hearts and our minds. I think what Julie was saying there was that she lives with a sense of awe. She lives each day with a sense of awe of how vast, how incredible, how infinite God is. That's so key to who she is and who her understanding of God is. And so if we share that conviction with Julie, and if we allow it to impact our lives as it has hers, then it does change who we are. There's a New York Times article from May 2015 that says that people who live with a sense of awe are more likely to do things that enhance the greater good for all of humanity. It's as if living with a sense that there is something bigger and greater out there helps us to refocus ourselves. We understand we're not the center of the universe. And so it helps move our perspective from narrow self-interest to understanding we're part of something bigger. And there's something bigger than who we even are. And that together, what we want to do is to make the world a better place. People who live with a sense of awe have greater compassion, have a greater sense of wanting to cooperate with others. They have a greater need to give to other people and to share with others. So this fundamental conviction that Julie has, that God is so awesome and infinite, translates into a sense of movement outward and towards others and to cooperating with other people. And each time that Julie stands on that conviction and she preaches and teaches, the Spirit moves in her and she does prophesy with words and with deeds. And so standing on that firm foundation, on that conviction of awe and motivation to do better, she works at pushing over some mountains. She works at pushing those mountains of racism and of sexism. She works to push over those mountains of violence. And that's just a few of the mountains she's been pushing on. And for the last 10 years, she's been offering us this vision and giving us this push and inviting us to join in the journey. And I think we're just getting started with her. So Kent, what do you think?
Hey, Julie. So when I think of Julie's ministry, last 2.5 years that I've had the privilege of walking with you and with Beth and with all of you, there are 3 core values that I see you circling back to again and again. The first value is summed up in the word inclusion. Julie is all about bringing us together. It's about having a heart for those who are on the margins, who society, for a variety of reasons, pushes away. Julie is all about bringing us together. And of course, that is rooted in our faith. Jesus was all about bringing us together and having a heart for those on the margins. A wonderful example was from this last Pride Parade in Salem. We had about a dozen of us from First Baptist who were marching with banners. We had children from 3 years old up until their 70s. And about a dozen of us from First Baptist Church were walking with our banner in the Pride Parade in Salem. And we were walking along. We were marching with the other folks, probably at least 1,000 others from the community. And we were walking along. Julie was at the Allagash, so she wasn't with us on that particular march. She was paddling. But we were marching off, and a group of 6 middle hires from First Baptist in Beverly were watching us. And they had rainbow capes. And they said, "Where's Julie?" And I said, "She's paddling." And they said, "Oh, yeah." And then they said, "Can we join you?" And we said, "Yes." And so the 6 middle hires with their rainbow capes of inclusion jumped into our band, and we continued marching together. And I thought, what a wonderful testimony to the expansive hearts of these young people. And what a testimony to the ministry of fellowship. You and your adult colleagues who mentor our youth and share that vision that God's love is for everybody, that we are all to put on our rainbow capes and welcome everyone into God's family. The second value that comes to mind is the word justice. It seemed that Julie was often preaching at the Sunday immediately following a gun shooting, another mass shooting in our country. It seemed to happen again and again. And part of it is it has become such a part of our life, this access to guns and the use to bring about violence. After the Charlestown shooting, when a young white man was welcomed into an African-American Bible study, and after that Bible study, and after being prayed over, he took a gun that he had carried in and he killed a number of people and wounded many others. Julie, I remember your sermon, and I remember your tears. One of the things I admire about Julie is she wears her heart on the sleeve. And it's not uncommon for you to bring tears into a sermon, which is a reminder to me and to all of us to feel the pain of each other. That the pain in Charleston that day you were telling us was our pain. And their loss was our loss. And I thank you for that sermon. Julie also has a core value, which is joy rooted in love. So a year later, Julie is preaching at about the time of another shooting, the Orlando shooting. And again, Julie, you brought your tears to us, a reminder that we too are to cry and weep for the violence inflicted on others, for the lack of inclusion in our world. But you also have the value of joy. And so Julie took the lead in planning a party, a benediction party, that we didn't conclude worship in this sanctuary. We went out onto the sidewalk, led by this sign, I think, that Julie had put together. And our children and adults took chalk out and wrote words of love on the sidewalk and on the church brick wall. And we had a fellowship time and a wonderful photograph. We had colored balloons, rainbow-colored balloons, to say God's love was for everyone. And this sign was in the middle of our gathering. This testimony, this reminder that love wins. Dr. King said that the arc of justice is long, but it bends towards justice. And Julie, you remind us of that. You remind us that Jesus calls us to be inclusive, to welcome everyone, to have a heart for justice, and to allow our hearts to break for one another, but also to remember that love wins, that we are people of the resurrection, and we are people of hope. Thank you for your ministry. Thank you for the ministry of all of you. Amen.